guys see? All right, let's do it. Okay, people are loading in right now. Okay, 1 second. See it. Hey, is everybody here? All right. Whew. Hey everyone, I'm Charlie Capon. Hope you're having a great evening. Saturday, August 5th. I am I'm the ghost of overpaid corporate CEOs here to welcome you to a very special workshop series with none other than Amy Bruni. This class will surprise you, will delight you, will terrify you maybe, I don't know. I'm very excited. A few things before we start. The chat is now open. We have a Q&A button as well. So if you have questions for Amy, feel free to use the Q&A button. Hi, everybody. Hi. Just making sure everybody's here. Chat's working. Great. Hi. Tell us where you're from. Love to meet everybody. So a few things before we begin. I just want to say thank you to Berto here, our interpreter, and Kristen. Thank you for moderating. Kristen, our moderator, will now be selecting 10 lucky people to be our front row. We like to, they're going to be selected at random. So if you have a working camera and working microphone, please use the raised hand feature at the bottom of your toolbar here. Yep, hit that raised hand. So we can select 10 of you to pull you in here, and you'll be able to ask some questions or interact. So you'll be able to see Amy and Amy will see you. So just be ready, you're going to be on camera. Be camera ready, unlike me. Meet and greet, if you have a meet and greet ticket, just stay right here. It will happen directly after our Ghost Hunting 101 class. And we'll just, after everyone has exited, and by that I mean our moderator has ghost busted everybody out of the Zoom, we will begin. So just stick here. I cannot tell you, I'm not going to talk too much because I want to get to this class. Hi, Mark. Hey, Trisha.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, how's it going? We're just pulling people in here for our front row. Let me just make sure we're all set up here. Okay. A few other quick things. I cannot tell you how excited I am about this class. This host is one of the coolest people I've ever had the chance to correspond with, and she's a wealth of knowledge. 11 seasons on sci-fi, kindred spirits. I call her a certified ghost therapist. You call her Amy Bruni. Let's bring Amy in now, shall we? Moderator, Amy is the best, Lisa. I absolutely agree. 100%. All right. We're getting everybody in here. Hey. Oh my God. Can everyone see this? Why would you do this to us?
I'm sorry, she wouldn't fit on the mantle behind me, and she's one of my favorites. So I wanted to make sure everyone saw her. Sorry. That's as scary as this is getting.
Are you sure? Because I don't know.
No, I'm not sure, actually.
Okay, Amy, we're so excited when we first started talking about having this class. You often get questions saying, will you ever teach a class on this? And this is it. This is the first time, huh?
This is, I've been wanting to teach one of these for a really long time. I've done a few in person, but it's been a while. And I feel like since the last time I did this, a lot of my thoughts and viewpoints on the paranormal have changed. And so I'm excited to kind of introduce this to everyone.
Well, I'm ready to learn. I'm ready to put my thinking cap on and get spooky here. Look at this lovely front row. Hello, everybody. Front row.
That's great. Hi, guys.
So I'm gonna bounce out here and let you do your thing. I want to take in all the knowledge. I've had some weird experiences in my life I can't explain. I'm excited to kick this whole season off. So let's do this amazing workshop series.
All right, let's do it. Thank you, guys. All right, hey everybody. Welcome to Ghost Hunting 101. This is a very high level introductory course when it comes to paranormal investigation. I think some of you have written me, and I know some of you are seasoned investigators, but I think, as you know, we all exchange ideas, and you might learn something new today. And I'm always open to learning something new from you too, which I love. So I just want to go over really quickly who I am, just in case you don't know, because I know not everybody knows who I am. I am a paranormal investigator and researcher. I have been doing this now, without giving away my age, we'll say a couple decades, 20 years or so. And I got started, like many people, I grew up in a haunted house. It piqued my interest. And as I got older, that interest and want to know what ghosts were never quite went away. And it, luckily for me, became my livelihood. And, I used to be a project manager at a health insurance company, and I would go to haunted places on the weekends. It was a very casual hobby for me. And then I got cast on Ghost Hunters. And so, my knowledge of the paranormal was suddenly on television, and that's how I met all of you. And it just kind of has snowballed from there. So I find myself in a really unique position, and I'm very thankful for it. And I'm thankful to be able to talk to you guys about all this today. So, I see Trisha has wine. So cheers, of course. This is my Stanley Hotel cup. I brought this for, so just to talk a little bit about my methodology when it comes to paranormal investigation, I'm very big on respect. I think that it's very important that we respect the spirits that we're trying to interact with, the people that we're trying to help, and the history of any location that we're in, which kind of leads me to historical accuracy, which is another really big thing that's important to me. I feel like, as ghost hunters or paranormal investigators, we walk into places a lot, and it's kind of this historical game of telephone. We're given a lot of folklore, we're given a lot of legends, and sometimes I feel like, we're talking to ghosts and maybe referring to them by a name that's not even theirs. And so it's very important to try to get your history correct. The other thing I will never do is I will never speak in absolutes. I'm never going to tell you what a ghost is, because I don't know what a ghost is. I have a lot of theories and ideas and thoughts on what a ghost could be, but I'm not someone who's going to tell you for sure that a ghost is a spirit of a dead person who hasn't passed on. I do sort of believe that, and I tend to veer in that direction, but one day it might be explained to us in a completely different way. And it's one of the most unprovable things. It's very much a belief system. So I am open to everyone's ideas and theories on this. So that being said, this is, we don't have a ton of time. So there are a lot of things here that I want to get into, but it just gives us the opportunity to do more classes. So let's just think about that. But before you investigate, I always ask people why. Why do you want to investigate the paranormal? And it could be a number of different reasons. It could be, you feel your house is haunted. You're having activity in your home and you want to figure out who it is and why they're there. They're keeping you up at night. It's driving you crazy. Who is this person? Someone has a haunting and they're curious about it and want to know what it is. Maybe you're looking for answers regarding the afterlife. The reality is that the belief in ghosts, some people are very religious and they're into the paranormal. Some people don't have any sort of religious background, and the paranormal almost becomes their religion. So maybe this is your way of seeking answers. Or maybe you're just looking for a thrill. Maybe it's something spooky. I completely confess that was how I got introduced to the paranormal. I lived in a haunted house, and then I started going to some of the most haunted places in the world for fun. And I didn't really think through as far as what I was truly experiencing, but that's what got me started. And there's no shame in that game, for sure. But what you're doing is going to affect how you investigate, where you investigate, and who you investigate with. So now, before we get into actual methods of investigation, think about what a ghost could be. Like, what can a ghost be? What do we think a ghost is? You know, if you do believe that ghosts are the spirits of people who have passed on or passed away, I should say, and have not passed on, you know, how are you going to treat them? You know, that's why respect is such a big deal to me, because I think that, especially paranormal television, which I'm a very big part of, sometimes looks at ghosts and spirits as very much something that they're bad, they're evil, everything's a demon, you know, but look at what you know, think about what you think a ghost is before you walk into any investigation. Humanize them is the biggest thing, the biggest message I can give. You know, when I go into an investigation, I always think of, if I'm getting interaction, I think of basically someone in front of me that I cannot see, and I treat them as I would any person standing in front of me. Now, also, before you go into an investigation, you want to keep your expectations low. I think TV sometimes makes it look really easy. You know, if you've watched Kindred Spirit, you know, you're seeing 43 minutes of 5 days of filming, and not even just the investigation. You're looking at research, you're looking at the tour, you're looking at interviews. So we're in there investigating 3 or 4 nights, and you know, hours and hours of footage. So you're seeing kind of the best of the best. And so just remember that when you go in, you're not always going to have activity. When I first started investigating years and years ago, I mean, most of the time, not a whole lot happened. So just remember, they're not really there to perform for you. They have no obligation to let you know that they're there. It's up to you to relate to them in a way that they will want to interact with you. They will want to give you information. So you've decided to go on an investigation. All right. Now, how you prepare depends on where you're going, right? I think that a lot of people start going on group investigations, like in a well-known location, which I think is actually an excellent way to start. Some people start by investigating a home or a business. I don't recommend investigating your own house right off the bat, unless you want answers that you're not quite ready for yet. But of course, my child does not follow that advice whatsoever. So I live in a 300-year-old house, and I often catch her up in the attic with my tools, talking to God knows who, probably one of these dolls. So, but I do recommend not to investigate your house right off the bat, just because if you know you do get some sort of interaction, you want to be like mentally prepared for that thing. Are you going to go sneak into an abandoned location? Don't do it. I'm not going to say that I didn't do it. I mean, I definitely, you know, it was the 80s, the 90s. But, you know, we definitely want to have permission before we go in to investigate any place. I know where I live here in Newport, Rhode Island, recently some kids went into a very well-known old haunted place and proceeded to fall through the ceiling. And, you know, so it's really important that we have permission and that these locations are safe. And so I know it's really tempting when you see that old abandoned house you drive by every day to want to go in there and investigate, but it's really smart to get permission first. And you'd be surprised how many people will let you just go in and investigate these places. I do recommend group investigations first. So I have a company called Strange Escapes you might be familiar with. We do like group investigations all over the country, all over the world really, but a lot of people, there are these group investigations available to a lot of folks out there. And I like them because it's kind of a great introduction to investigating. You're usually being led by people who have investigated before. You're in a well-known location with documented activity. A lot of times the history is already there for you, or, you know, some high-level history is there for you. But, you know, I think that it is important to also do your own research before you go into any location. And that's why we're doing an entire research class, because that's my favorite part. But just make sure, you know, before you go into a well-known location, that you do some research other than what you can just find on the internet. Get some names, get some pertinent facts, find some old newspaper articles. You know, I think that those are the kinds of things, because when you're going into a group investigation in some of these more well-known locations, you are dealing with spirits who have heard it all at that point. You know, they have had people come in time and time again. They're probably more familiar with your equipment than you are. You know, I've been into places where I was at the Stanley Hotel once, again, bring up the Stanley, and I pulled out a K2 meter and I put it on the bed and I said, now, do you know what this is? And I got an EVP that said K2. Like, it knew exactly what I was, I don't want to say it, but they knew exactly what I was using. And so think outside the box, because with group investigations, you are probably asking, like, if there's some sort of well-known tragedy, you do run the risk of just kind of bringing that up again and again and again. And can you imagine being a ghost? You know, I'm trying to think of like Waverly Hills. You're sitting in Waverly Hills, Kentucky, with, you know, the tuberculosis hospital. How many times are people going to ask you about having tuberculosis? They're going to ask about the death tunnel. They're going to ask about, you know, were you a nurse? Were you an employee? Were you a patient? You got to think outside the box. Think about things that were happening historically at that time. Think of songs. Think of movies. Think of things that are going to trigger them to answer you, and endear yourself to them to get that activity. But also question why you want that activity this whole time. I think that's really important. You know, why do you want to interact with ghosts? So I did touch on that already. But the other thing is, you want to realize that they've had every obvious question asked. I've asked silly things before, like, what's your favorite ice cream? What's, you know, like I said before, what's your favorite song? What's your favorite movie? It's things like people like to converse. Like if someone comes up to you, I always say, think of walking into a party where you don't know anybody and you're trying to make friends. How are you going to talk to them? Are you going to be like, do you know you're dead? Like, you're not going to ask things like that. You're going to try to ask things that are going to, you know, make them want to be friendly with you, depending on what kind of activity you want. You know, some people go in and they try to provoke, and then they get the corresponding type activity, which is not the way I like to investigate. And I imagine it's not the way any of you like to investigate, which is why you're here. So I'm trying to see if I have any questions. I don't even know where I go. Oh, here's Q&A. Let me see. Oh, okay. Somebody's asking, what was the first place I did an investigation at? That's a really good question. I think I started investigating when I was a kid, and I remember investigating with my dad. Like, we went to local cemeteries. We went to like a local fort at one point. My dad was tricking me. He knew I liked ghosts, and so he was trying to teach me history at the same time. And so, but I do remember we had this beat up old tape recorder, and we were trying to get EVPs and things. Okay, so someone's also asking, what's your thoughts on the psychic not knowing the investigation first? I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later, just like my thoughts on psychics in general in investigations, but I think that's huge. I think that's really important that they go in cold for a number of reasons. Poor Chip Coffee, we actually blindfold him sometimes and bring him in. So the thing is, like, when we bring Chip in on an investigation, he literally, or any psychic that we have, they have no idea where they're going. So the most they know is what airport they flew into and what hotel they're staying at. Beyond that, our production crew will pick them up and take them to a location, and then sometimes blindfold them. But we try to keep it as much of a secret as possible. And honestly, that's not because I feel as though they're going to try to cheat the system or anything. We just don't want them to have any preconceived notions when they're going in. So a lot of people are asking about research. A lot of people are asking about equipment. So you have to we will get to all of that when we do those other classes, because those are some of my favorite things to talk about. So those are going to warrant like an entire class. So, okay. Now I want to talk about investigating a home or a business. So this is kind of when it gets serious. You've kind of moved past the group investigations, you're feeling comfortable. You want to move into helping someone with a house, or you want to investigate a business of some sort. So I will touch on, I do like to research these places as much as I can beforehand. And it's not because, it's because I want to be able to ask triggering questions that are going to get answers. But also sometimes I'll get evidence that will correspond with history and research. And that's really important. But also sometimes I get evidence that leads me to research or history I did not know. So it's very important. I do like to have names beforehand, mainly of past residents, pertinent history, deaths, the bad stuff. I like to know the bad stuff that happened in places. I like to know the bad stuff that happened nearby. So I try to do research, not just on the location itself, but, in the neighborhood, because I don't believe ghosts are locked into any one location. I think sometimes we go places and they're like, what's going on over here? We investigated in Gettysburg and the spirits were very aware of each other in different locations. And so I do like to know like kind of a overall history of an entire neighborhood if possible. But many times my history just gets thrown out the window because what's going on there has nothing to do with it, but it's nice to have it ahead of time. And then also I like to interview people beforehand, the family, business owners, anyone who's had experiences there. You really want to get kind of a handle on what's happened there in the past and what you're looking for, because it's great if you can investigate and experience what they're experiencing, because that gives them validation for what happened, even if you don't necessarily get answers for them. And don't always expect to get answers right away. Sometimes these places, it takes months of investigation to get clear answers. But if you're going to really make this your mission, these places sometimes become more like case studies than just like a quick overnight thing. Now, when you are investigating a home or investigating with a group or whoever, things to think about, and I think that this is something people don't talk about a lot, is people are trusting you to walk into their house, and you are trusting the people whose house you're walking into. So I'm a big fan of background checks and basic Google searches. Find out who you're interacting with. If you're joining a paranormal team, find out who they are. You would be so surprised at some of the things that have happened. You're basically like walking into a place probably in the dark with a bunch of people you don't know that great. So just be very, very careful. It is a situation that is where you can be easily taken advantage of. And think of the homeowners too. And also, red flags, just pay attention. Obviously I'm hoping you're investigating with people that you know and trust, but the reality is, my spouse hates ghosts. He's like, whatever pays the bills. So, you might not have people directly near you who want to investigate. You might have to make friends based on that interest. So just be very, very careful if you are doing that. And so that's kind of that portion. And now I want to talk about a couple things that people ask me all the time. Before investigating, people often ask me, how do you protect yourself? People always ask, how do you protect yourself? And my answer is this. I realize that people sometimes want to bring like a crystal with them, or they want to say a prayer, or they have like a religious medal or any of those things. And if that makes you feel safe, then by all means, bring that with you or do those things. But my advice is this. I walk into every location knowing that I am enough, because if I have that religious medal, or I have that crystal, or maybe I forget to say that prayer, or I lose one of those things, I will instantly feel weaker. I will instantly feel more vulnerable. And so I go in knowing that I am a strong person and I am not worried about any spirit. People always ask, is a ghost going to follow you home? If you've ridden the Haunted Mansion at Disney or Disney World, you know that yes, a ghost will follow you home. So you just have to be ready for that. But that being said, it has happened a couple of times. And that is one of those things where, again, you sort of have to humanize these spirits and go, okay, who is this? Why are they here? I had an investigation once where I believe the ghost of a child followed me home, and I was pregnant at the time. If you watched Ghost Hunters when I was pregnant, I basically investigated until I was ready to let go into labor. I couldn't see my feet. That was the most scary part of investigating, by the way, pregnant, was that I couldn't see my feet in these really spooky places in the dark. But I do believe the ghost of a child followed me back to my house. And in that case, I was upstairs after I got home from a case, and I saw this little shadow run down the hallway. And I thought, that's strange, because my house is very much not haunted. I'd never had any activity there. And so then I went back out on the road to film, and I had a friend who was helping me with like housework while I was gone. And she texted me and she said, Amy, I think I just saw a little shadow run down the hallway upstairs, right where I saw this shadow. And I had not told her about this at all, right? And I went, oh no, this is a problem. And then Mr. X, the spouse, who I refer to as Mr. X, non-believer, I get the text. Did you bring something home with you? And apparently he was upstairs and something got thrown in the bedroom. He denies this text to this day, but I have the receipts. I, of course, screenshotted that. And so I knew at that point something did probably come home with me. And I went home and I sat down and I talked to this spirit who I very much thought was a child, like I said. And I just had a conversation. I just said, hey, listen, I know you're here. I'm sure there's a reason that you're here. I don't know what was happening where you were. Please don't disrupt us. But if there's something that you need, I'm here. But I come and go, and just, fair warning, it's very boring around here. And we get a little activity here and there, but eventually it just kind of went away. And so I didn't think that this thing latched on to me and was a demon and was going to suck away my soul or anything. I did have a lot of questions. I was like, did this ghost take an Uber with me? Was it on the plane next to me? How did it get here? I don't know how that works, but over time, after just having a very normal talk, it went away. And the couple other times that has happened, it's been very much the same. So I know, what is a ghost Uber called? Do they have, I don't know. I feel like that's a business opportunity right there. But now that's to say, I'm not saying that there aren't bad ghosts. There are bad people. You have to remember that. Again, humanizing spirits means that some humans suck. There's jerks. Just because you die doesn't mean you stop being a jerk, right? And so I don't necessarily think that a bad or mean ghost or malicious ghost is like a devil or a demon, but I do think that terrible people die too, and terrible people stay behind. And so there are moments that you do have to be kind of aware that something is genuinely trying to mess with you. But I also don't think they can hurt you. You have the advantage in that case. But that's probably a whole other class, of course. So that's how I feel about that. Now, when you're going on your investigations, think about what you want to bring. Obviously, we're going to talk a lot about equipment in the equipment and tech course that we're doing. But my biggest advice is to not get so caught up in tech and the equipment that you don't have your experiences and your personal experiences. You know what I mean? You want to pay attention. I think that the best equipment that you have is yourself. I think we get so caught up in trying to prove ghosts exist that you forget why you're at this. I'm beyond that. It's not my job to prove that ghosts exist to someone who doesn't believe. It's completely up to them. I am here for people who are on the same page as me and who want my help. So that's why I think sometimes, especially nowadays, like everyone thinks it's fake anyway, so don't get so caught up on getting something on video or audio that you are not experiencing the location. Pay attention to what you feel, pay attention to the experiences that you're having, but bring a flashlight. Don't count on your phone flashlight because they are terrible. And so it also be very courteous of the people around you. Obviously, when you have flashlights, don't shine them in each other's eyes and things. So I'm not doing too bad on time. I'm pretty proud of myself right now, I must say. All right. Let me see real quick. I want to see if there's any other fun questions before I get into just kind of like the basic techniques while you're investigating.
There were a couple of questions about, is there a place you wouldn't investigate or a bucket list place you would like to investigate? Those were
Okay, that's fair. So I have a few bucket list locations. I will investigate Disney World one of these days. I also would like to investigate the White House because there are a lot of ghost stories in the White House. Mary Todd Lincoln was a huge spiritualist and had seances there and stuff. And I would also like to investigate Graceland very badly. So that is like very high on my list. So yeah, that's a big one. Okay. And then some people are asking about the Estes method and stuff. We will definitely go over that too in the equipment course. So, okay. Let's see, where am I here? All right, I talked about flashlights. Oh, so group settings. So as you're investigating, you're out there, you're investigating, you're working with other people, you're all working together. This is very important, okay? There are certain just very basic things that you need to do when you're investigating with a group. Basically, don't dominate the investigation. Let everybody have their chance to ask questions and bring forth ideas, right? Because you never know who's going to have like the cool theory or method of the evening, because you never know what's going to work. Think outside the box. When you're doing EVP sessions, talk normally, don't whisper. When you're, if you whisper, when you're playing that stuff back on your recorder or your phone or whatever you're using, it's very easy to think that's an EVP. If you hear a sound and you know where it's coming from, a truck goes by, someone's stomach rumbles, anything like that, tag it. So because you think you'll remember, you won't remember. You'll be listening to audio later. You won't remember any of that stuff. Like I was saying with flashlights before, don't shine them in each other's faces. And, don't be that person that everything is happening to. There's always that one person in the group that is, getting all the chills, they're getting touched. They're like, just let everybody, have their moment for sure. And the biggest thing is don't let confirmation bias get the best of you. Be a realist. That's the best advice I can give is sometimes we want so badly something to be paranormal that we're willing to overlook other very obvious explanations for what it could be. And so if there's any doubt in your mind, or there's any other rational explanation for something, let it go. And when something is truly paranormal and without explanation, it is the best feeling. I mean, for some people, it's truly terrifying, but for me, I love it. It's a total rush. And so just don't let your want for something to happen cloud your judgment. It's important. It's very easy to fall into that trap. Now, I also, when you go into locations, don't make promises you can't keep. When you start interacting with spirits, don't tell them that you can help them. Don't tell them that you're going to bring them something. Unless you're going to. Just make sure that you state your intentions very clearly. That leads me to something else that people ask me about all the time, and that's the theory of crossing things over. It's a theory that I don't necessarily subscribe to in the traditional sense of kind of walking in and being like, go with the light, Carol Ann. That's not how I do things. I feel as though spirits are here and can cross over, but I feel like they are usually here. And if they're trying to get your attention, there is a reason. There's something they need help with. And that is my version of kind of crossing things over. It can be very labor intensive and involve a lot of work. But there is a whole chapter on that in my book where I go very in depth into that. So I'm not necessarily discounting the idea of crossing things over. I just think for us, it's very presumptuous of us who are alive and have never experienced the other side to try to tell spirits what they should be doing, because we really have no idea what's going on over there. So that's just my theory on that. Be ready to be bored. Like I said earlier, you're going to be sitting in the dark for hours. And why are you sitting in the dark? People ask that all the time. Why do you investigate in the dark? So we investigate at night for a number of reasons. The main one being that nighttime is calm. You are trying to detect sounds. You're trying to see, you're trying to see lights and anomalies. At night, it's much easier to rule out other things going on. The world is quiet. People are asleep. Traffic dies down. Your senses are heightened as you sit in the dark. You feel more. So that is why people investigate in the dark. And obviously, if you're going to a location and they say, every day at 2 p.m., a lady in white walks down this hallway, clearly you're going to be investigating at 2 p.m. If the majority of the activity happens during the day, of course, investigate during the day. But I have a theory that sometimes during the day, there is activity happening around us and we have no idea. I think sometimes we look ghosts face to face and we have no idea that they are a dead person. And so nighttime, it's just a lot easier to rule other things out. And so that's a preference. But it also means that you could be falling asleep on a cement floor in an abandoned asylum at 3 a.m. because you just can't help yourself. Speaking from experience. So I know someone was asking about psychics earlier. I love using psychics in investigations. I am not psychic. I feel like I'm a pretty empathic person or an empathetic person. Like I think I can kind of pick up on vibes pretty well, but I don't necessarily think I'm psychic. But what I like in the perfect world of investigation, I like to have a really great piece of research that corresponds with a really great piece of evidence, which corresponds with a hit from the psychic. Like all three things match. Like I call it like the trifecta. And I love it when that happens. I know I'm going down the right path. When we were investigating at Waverly Hills, for example, there was, I'm going to get the name wrong because there are 1,000 investigations in this brain and these little facts kind of swirl around. But there was a spirit there of a man who basically he had tuberculosis. Obviously, he was in the hospital for a number of years, and people had tuberculosis and were in Waverly Hills, not just for weeks. He was there for 12 years with tuberculosis. Okay. Sometimes they went in and out. Sometimes they got better enough to go home and sometimes they went back. So this gentleman, he had tuberculosis. He had, I want to say 5 to 7 children. I can't remember how many. In Waverly Hills, his wife meets another man at 2 a.m. at some cafe in Louisville. She ends up falling and hitting her head on a curb and dying. And so all at once, this man, he has, yes, he was super angry. People do remember this. At once, this man found out that his wife was most likely being unfaithful, and B, she died, and C, his children were put into foster care or into the system until they could figure out who was going to watch them. And so how we figured out this story was I dug up all of these newspaper articles of things that happened at Waverly Hills that could have been associated, tragic things beyond just people, thousands of people dying of tuberculosis. And I brought all of these newspaper articles out. And that one, for some reason, stood out to me. And I just kind of kept it in my back pocket. But I had probably 20 or 30 stories. But Chip Coffey comes in and he's doing a walkthrough. And up on that 4th floor, he says, CCC, Chester Charles Curtin. I can't remember what his name was, but the guy's name was all C's. And he's like, I don't know this guy's name. It's like all C's. Charles, Chester, CCC. The guy's name was was like Charles, like he literally said his name and it was all C's. And so I knew right then, I'm like, okay, I've got my research and I've got Chip hitting on it. And we brought that information into the investigation and we figured out that that was our guy, the man whose wife had passed away. So that was a really big moment. So that's like perfect. So
Amy, those are my initials and now I'm extremely afraid now. So thank you. Wow. Okay.
sorry. Have you been at Waverly Hills lately?
Just only when it's tax season. So we just want to get to a couple of final questions before we move on to the meet and greet. Front row, if you have any questions, if you can just use the raise hand feature there, so we can get to you. We'd love to grab a couple of questions. You don't have to. It's okay. Okay. Oh, someone's physically raising their hand. Let's take that one. Hi, Sterling.
Hi, thank you. So I have a question about the, like, kind of when you're trying to maybe coach people about, like, don't be the one who has like all the experiences and kind of because I have some folks that I kind of bring out. I'm actually a psychic medium, and one of the ways that I have students that I work with, but also one of the ways that I think it's important for us to be better mediums is actually learn how to investigate. It's kind of backwards of like learn how to
that's fair. I like that.
Do you have any tips about how to diplomatically talk about those things with folks about like, make sure you give everybody space and don't be the one who's like, kind of like dominating. Do you have any tips about how to do that in a way that folks don't get defensive?
So my tip is to just say it right off the bat, because then people become aware. Like, so it's one of the things I say before I even go into an investigation. And it's hard to say because like, until you've been there, you don't really know. Like, it's one of those things where, I don't think people are necessarily doing it on purpose per se, but like it's easy to spot when you're in an investigation. So I say it ahead of time. I say it before every strange escapes investigation. And it seems to kind of weed those people out because they become aware of themselves and what they're doing. So.
That's great. That's a good one. Good one. A collaboration in these kind of like vulnerable moments for sure. Any other front row questions before we start wrapping up? Yeah, Jennifer, let's get you here.
Hi, Amy.
Hey.
So my question is, have you found that spirits respond better if you're respectful versus if you're like, oh, I don't believe? Like, as far as, do they say, okay, well, I'm going to prove myself to you, or okay, you're a little too overeager, it doesn't matter?
I really think it depends on their personality. Like, I feel like it, if I become a ghost, I'm definitely going to want to like mess with people who don't believe in me. But like, I also think that especially people who are truly looking for something and they're looking for help or assistance, they're going to identify more with people who seem more open to them, or, who are kind of like respectfully approaching them in a way. I mean, and I don't mean talk to them like they're kindergartners, of course. I mean, talking to them like they're just right in front of you. And it's very awkward at first, but I've gotten very good at it over the years. I just talk to myself now all the time.
A good habit to have. So before we close out here, I just want to make sure, Amy, if you can just share your website and also about your book. We've been talking about your book a little in chat, but
yeah. So I go a lot more in depth. Like, this was very, very high level, but I do think we were able to cover some really great things tonight. But like, this is my book. It's Life with the Afterlife, 13 Truths I Learned About Ghosts. I elaborate so much more on so many of the things that we hit upon tonight. So definitely check it out. And you can just go to amybruni.com if you want to come to any events I'm at. I'm doing a nationwide speaking tour. And so I might be in your area telling spooky stories sometime soon.
it's amazing. Well, we have 3 more classes, and I know we touched on some really good takeaways tonight, about being respectful and about how you go about it, and some fun questions about your past, which was awesome. But we have 3 more classes coming up, including class on tech and equipment, EVP and how to get ghosts to talk back, and also how to research the place, which is that speaks to my heart. I can't wait to hear about how you research these places and people.
That's my favorite one. I'm partial, but
for sure, because we need to know where we are and be respectful. And to be respectful, I think we need to know a little bit about what we're getting into. Also, I just want to say thank you to everybody who purchased tickets tonight. You can also buy meet and greets to the upcoming classes. We're going to do a meet and greet right now, but every ticket. And Meet and Greet is supporting a really important organization, important to Amy, called VetPaw, which is an organization of post 9/11 veterans that are helping to train park rangers in poaching fields in Africa. Is that right?
That is correct. It's one of my favorite organizations. I just think it's very important. And I think endangered animals are one of my passions. So I love VetPaw.
Amazing. Well, we're going to segue over to the meet and greet. Thank you, everybody. If you could just exit at the fore and aft of the cabin and just please keep your hands and arms to yourself. I don't want to get all like spooky Blair Witch on you, but
You will.
not coming down just to get you guys moving. Thank you so much. We'll see you at the next class. We have a bundle of the next 3 classes too, if you didn't get the other ones. So come and have some more spooky fun with us. I'm gonna also probably get some wine. The idea about Disney World, I mean, Disney churros and spooky things just makes sense to me.
Well, yeah. I mean, they dump people's ashes in Haunted Mansion all the time. There's a code for it. They have to shut it down to clean it.
What? I feel like there's a lot of debauchery and also a lot of consecration that's happening at all of these theme parks for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But the White House stuff, actually, that in terms of hallowed halls, there's a lot going on there, and some presidents have even talked about seeing stuff there, right?
They have, and a lot of their staff, like I've actually been privately contacted by staff members there that are like, we wish you could investigate here. So I know stuff is going on.
A little off the record,
Yeah.
All right, so we've got, if everybody could just exit out too, we'll just get to our meet and greets here. And then we're actually pulling people in. Hey, Sterling. Hey, Jacob. We'll do a roundtable format, so we can about a minute or 2 per person, and I'll just call on you and we'll move around. And if you just have your questions ready, so that we give everyone equal time. And if you have any questions or specifics, just have it in mind so we can be productive. Great. Yep. Oh, someone said, Denise said you should run for president so you can investigate the White House. That's it.
I'm like, that's my entire campaign. I'm like, I just want to look for ghosts in the White House. I'll just put my cats in charge. It'll be fine.